So, good morning, everyone, and I welcome you all on behalf of YIT. And let's start the universal invocation first. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Let's observe silence for a couple of minutes. Come back. So, good morning again and welcome. Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam. So, today's topic is duties of the Theosophist. And we have three speakers, Sister Shreeyashi-Aditya-Pooja, Brother Aditya Mathur, and Sister Pooja Gole. So, first, I'll invite Sister Shreeyashi-Aditya for her talk. So she has keen interest in philosophical affairs and occult sciences. She is a postgraduate in ancient history from the University of Allahabad and is an active member of the Theosophical Society. She was one of the panelists in the second youth program organized by the Indian section of the Theosophical Society, Varanasi, the theme of which was truth, beauty, and goodness. She then delivered a talk on Look Beyond Yourself and the first object of the Theosophical Society in the 146th International Convention under the Indian section. Recently, she spoke on Theosophy and Truth, the role of C.W. Leadbeater and G. Bruno during the Adyar Day celebration. She is an ardent disciple of the tenets of the Theosophical Society and believes in the motto Satyat Nasti Parodharma. She strives to propagate the popularize the message of Theosophical Society amongst the youth. So,
thank you so much, sister.
Let's welcome Sister Shreeyashi-Aditya.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. As very well explained by sister, I am Shreeyashi-Aditya from Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand Federation, Anand Lodge, Prayagraj. Today, we have gathered here to talk about the duties of a Theosophist, as enunciated by Mrs. Annie Besant in the 3 convention lectures delivered at Lucknow, commemorating the 41st anniversary of the Theosophical Society. The duties of a Theosophist were demarcated, as Mrs. Besant, into 3 aspects. First is the duty of the Theosophist to religion. Second is the duty of the Theosophist to society. And third is the duty of the Theosophist to nation and humanity. My topic for today's symposium is the duty of the Theosophist to religion. The Theosophical Society was formed on the backdrop of a constant struggle between science and religion. Science that is empowered by materialism, and religion which has always been organized and not the dharma that we know. Materialism, as speaks Mrs. Besant, is a phenomena in human history which from time to time arises when religion has forgotten its life. Driven by the feeling of desire, materialism is said to be the fuel of ego. It is a cycle of desire and achievement which exhausts the man. Mrs. Annie Besant, in her works has mentioned of her years as an atheist. Tracing her path through Christianity and atheism, she declares that materialism was equally unsatisfactory, for not only does it fail to answer questions like what is life and what is thought, but it claims that no answer could ever be given.
व्हॉट्सअपवर दररोजची आहेत ते.
But is it true?
फायनल मी ते केलं आणि रेवतीला बोलायला लावलं.
One second, sister, you are muted. One second. Unmute yourself.
Did I begin? Am I audible?
Yes.
The material is what divides us. From how one looks at to what one owns, everything is materialism. They are all weighed against each other, creating competition, jealousy, greed, and hatred. A man full of such vices truly never is able to recognize himself, and so he moves further away from the absolute truth. The Kathopanishad quotes, Paratah kaman nuyanti, balaste mrityoryanti, vitatasya pasham, atadhira amritatvam viditva, dhruvam dhruveshvihi na parthyante. That is, the ignorant pursue external objects of desire. They get into the meshes of widespread death, but the intelligent, knowing sure immortality, do not covet to uncertain things. Therefore, materialism is uncertain. So what happens to a man who confines himself to materialism? To quote Lord Krishna from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ayuktah prakritah stabdhah shato naishkrita kolasah vishadi dirgha sutri cha karata tamas uchyate. A person whose behavior is marked by ignorance, conceit, vulgarity, deceit, maliciousness, offense to others, laziness, without self-harmony, procrastination, materialism, and speaking and doing things against dharma, is said to be a man who possesses the dark and ignorant tamas personality. Therefore, what materialism did for the world was speak and showcase partial truth, or the relative truth, also referred as partial knowledge by Mrs. Annie Besant in the text. So now I ask you, what is the actual truth? The actual truth is Sat, Sat, which is everlasting, which is formless, which is ever present. It is non-changeable. With place, with individual, with time, it remains constant. G. Bruno states, truth does not change because it is or is not believed by the majority. Therefore, truth is easily comprehensible. Just like 2 + 2 is 4, it is plain, it is simple. However, at times it is difficult to accept. Thus, in my view, truth is the easiest hardship. Thus, in my view, truth is the easiest challenge and the most unchallenging of hardships. On truth, Jiddu Krishnamurti states, truth being limitless, unconditioned, unapproachable by any path whatsoever, cannot be organized. Hence, in his view, truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, or by any sect. So if we are to believe that truth is everlasting, omniscient, omnipresent, and absolute, we may conclude that the Brahman, that is the Sat Chit Anand, and the soul, which is a part of the Brahman, the Anusat, Anuchit, Anu Anand, are both also absolute truths. With reference to this, Srimad Bhagavad Gita quotes, Vadanti tattattva vidastatvam yajnana madvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabadyate, which means the absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding, namely Brahma, which is the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, also referred by some as God or the Absolute One, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme, which dwells within each of our hearts, and Lord Krishna, the physical embodiment of truth, beauty, and goodness, who is the charioteer of Arjun and the guide to all of humanity. In the text, Mrs. Annie Besant quotes Bacon on the same. While a little knowledge inclineth men to atheism, a larger knowledge bringeth them back to religion. The position of theosophy in the world shows how the theosophists have striven in the past to do their duty to religion. Though materialism was partially conquered and still exists, science has begun accepting religion and God. Hence, we saw the universal acceptance of Brahman in God particle. Mrs. Annie Besant in the text mentions that the greatest service that theosophy has done to religion is declaring and once again proving that man can know God, that man can realize God, and that man can be one with him. Throwing light upon the partial and absolute knowledge, Mrs. Annie Besant says that we perceive from sacred books to society that is all the partial knowledge. She says that the knowledge of everything that the mouth can speak, that the ear can hear, that the teacher can teach, that the pupil can learn, that the man can give to another man, it is all partial in nature. It is the lower knowledge. However, the absolute knowledge is the knowledge of him by whom all else is known, the knowledge that none can impart, but the knowledge that each one of us have within our hearts. That is the place which holds the reality or the actual truths, and the God within that shall illuminate the world, without whom we are nothing. Here, no teacher is wanted. Here, no guide is necessary. The light shines within every man that cometh into the world, and that light shines in the heart of every one of you. There is none who is born without it. There is none who cannot find it. Look not for the light outside, but look for the light within you. And when that light is found, which is the essence of nature, then you obtain the knowledge by which all else is known. Therefore, theosophy guides us into looking within ourselves, to understand who we are, to gather what the sacred books of the past state, but to not let our minds be conditioned by what they teach us, because it is only through an unconditioned, impartial mind that one can learn to acknowledge the difference between aparavidya and paravidya. To quote a dialogue between Shaunak and Rishi Angiras from Mundikopanishad, Shaunak asks, Kasminnu bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavatiti. That is, revered sir, what is that by the knowing of which all this becomes known? To which Rishi Angiras humbly replies, Dve vidye vidittavye itihasma yad brahma vido vidanti para chaivapara cha tatrapara rigvedo yajurvedah samvedo atharvedah shiksha kalpo vyakaranah niruktam chando ज्योतिषमिति अथः parayaya tadakshar madigyamyate, which means that there are two different kinds of knowledge to be acquired, the higher knowledge or the paravidya, and the lower knowledge or the aparavidya. The lower knowledge consists of all textual knowledge like the Vedas, the Vedangas. However, the paravidya or the higher knowledge is by which the immutable and imperishable Atman is realized, the knowledge which brings about the direct realization of the supreme reality, who is the source of us all. Therefore, as theosophists, we know the difference, and this makes us equally responsible and powerful. We know that with knowledge comes power, and with power comes responsibility. And our duty is to serve the humanity. But how? Because service can be anything from helping someone in need to feeding the poor. It is all service, and service is relative in nature. It is a relative term with a relative definition. However, the duty of the Theosophist encompasses it all. It inculcates belief to speak of the absolute truth and to spread the knowledge of what we hold within, thus spreading the knowledge of Paravidya, which is the absolute truth. To bring truths into light, like reincarnation and karma, were emphasized in the West. Similarly, to inculcate faith and belief in all among us is the duty of us today. As revivers of spiritualism, we stand on the cusp of science and religion, of both the worlds, of materialism and absolute truth, of Paravidya and Aparavidya, lubricating the nexus between the two. The text speaks of a world teacher with all due respect and without negating the ideology spoken to us by our predecessors. The examples that are given to us are of men in agony who return to Christ when they are in need, who return to a helper when they believe in Islam, who return to Bodhisattva because they are Buddhists, who return to incarnation of Lord Vishnu because they believe in Hinduism. But aren't they all the same? Aren't we all fighting against pain that life gives us? Therefore, I would like to say that the birth of hope in times of pain, in times of darkness, in times of agony is what the real teacher is. Because with hope comes light, and with light comes knowledge. Therefore, as Theosophists, we need to cushion the people around us so that they can know not only of the Supreme One, but also of the truth. Mrs. Annie Besant states that the duty of a Theosophist is beyond spreading the message of the coming of the teacher. That is, to proclaim with all the energy that we can unite the religions to live together, as well as to speak for what a true religion is. She says that it is the realization of oneness. It is not different religions. It is one in spectrum of different colors. To quote Madame Blavatsky, theosophy on earth is like a wide ray of spectrum, and each religion only one of 7 colors. To form a brotherhood, fulfilling the first object of the Theosophical Society, it is our great duty that we unite all religions and we unite man and humanity. The last duty, as laid by Mrs. Besant, is, as she states, essentially, Hinduism is necessary. Why is it necessary? Not because it is the religion of India, but because Hinduism encompasses the entire living. Your each day, from Sunday to Sunday, you are spending with Hinduism, with God. Therefore, we must be religious everywhere. And religious here does not only mean believer of God, but it includes all the planes, from serving humanity to spreading the knowledge of absolute truth, to uniting humanity into one. Only when we are thoroughly religious, when religion permeates every activity, when religion permeates every thought, when religion permeates every word, only then will the Theosophist do his duty to religion. And the duty of the Theosophist is the duty of every religious man. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thanks for the insightful and nice presentation. And so, I mean, it's what is the duties of the Theosophist, and thanks for reminding. And it was a nice talk. Thank you so much. And now I'll invite Brother Aditya Mathur to share his views about these duties of Theosophist. He has completed his undergraduate in mechanical engineering in the year of 2011. He is working as a robotics engineer at THRSL. He was introduced to Theosophy by his father. He joined Theosophy in 2014 and he is a member of Shankar Lodge, Delhi. So let's welcome Brother Aditya Mathur.
Yeah,
Welcome, brother. Over to you.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to speak about duty of a theosophist from the perspective of society. So before we get into the subject, Annie Besant has talked about religion. She says the central idea behind everything that we do in the society has to be that we are very religious towards everything that we do. So when she says religion, I think Sister she has put it really well. So when she says religion, it means the realization of self, the God, and the realization of unity of everything. So then Annie Besant goes on to say that there is no separate compartments in life. So oftentimes people say that partly I'll put my time to God, partly I give it to business, partly I can give it to ordinary paths. So she says it doesn't work that way. If you're truly religious, your religiousness would reflect in each of these things that you do in life, whether it be business, be ordinary paths in life. For example, let's say you're doing dishes or any other activity in life. You do it religiously, then it's what being a theosophist is. Now, then she goes on to say, what does theosophy does for a person who's beginning to become religious? So she says, it begins with the man's own religion. It deepens his love for it. It widens his own view, and the religion becomes more real than mere rituals. So most importantly, when we read this, it to me it reminded me of the things like it breaks down the walls between each of the other religions. So when we say it breaks down the walls, it means it's no longer my religion versus, let's say, someone else's religion. It's about coming together to realize that unity, that divinity exists in each of these religions, and each of them are permeating the same thing. So she says, when religion permeates each walk of our life, that whatever we do, we are very religious about it. She says, Theosophist is a man who takes his religion in earnest. She says, we must recognize, we must bring religion in every part of our life. Each activity has to be an act of service and not an action that seeks fruit. And then she goes on to say, unless he can do that, he is not a true theosophist. So there we have a definition of being a true theosophist as well. So she says, act, work, but remember that action binds, and save action which is done for the sake of sacrifice. So another way to look at it would be if we do something for the self, let's say we do any karma for the self, whether it be good or bad, it's binding because we're doing it for the self and not for the whole. So if we do anything for the part and not the whole, that would be binding karma. But if we want to liberate ourselves from these cycles, she says we must do it for the whole, for the humanity. She says that which you do for the whole and not for the part is sacrifice. And that action is called service. So then she goes on to say there are a few individuals who have already perfected themselves on the path. And she says that liberation is that stage when you're not obliged to return, but you return for the welfare of humanity. You do it because you want to help your brethren out. And she quotes this from Bhagavad Gita when she says, when I have stripped a man of everything, then I give him myself. This is where she says when Krishna says this, he means that where there is power, wealth, and victory, if Krishna is present, all of these will come like a byproduct. But all of these will come if you do selfless service and if you give yourself for the welfare of others. Now, there's a central idea which she has put behind doing any sort of duty in the society. And she says there are three things that we must remember. One is karma, second is reincarnation, and third is brotherhood. If we keep these three central ideas in mind as we go about doing anything in the society, we will have a much more success in terms of doing service to others and not just doing the action for the self. So the first duty here that she mentions is we have a duty towards lifting our submerged brethren. So she uses the word submerged here for people who are less privileged than us. For example, let's say people who clean sewers, or let's say our maids, or any other people who are less privileged than us. She talks to them like a submerged brother. She uses the word submerged very beautifully because she puts it like that. It's like an object which is underwater right now. It's not lost anywhere. It's just underwater. It's submerged right now, but it will eventually come up, and they will be where we are today, and eventually they will be where we will be in the future, like the great beings we talk about. So she says we may do that best if we when she says we may do that best if we realize we owe to them everything that makes our physical civilization clean, pure, and comfortable. So she says these are the brethren on whose shoulders we are essentially living. So essentially that is all about it, right? So the clean life that we are living, everything that we do is because of these brethren, because if not for them, who would be doing all these works, right? So we may look down upon these men or women, but we are essentially standing on their shoulders. So we should treat them with respect, speak with them gently, not because not because we should do it because we'll get something in return, but the central idea is they're like a brethren, they're like a small brother. So the idea behind this whole thing is of brotherhood, like the three ideas she mentioned before: karma, reincarnation, and brotherhood. So the central idea behind this thought is brotherhood. If we treat them like a brother, uh, for example, we have a younger sibling, so we want good for them, we want them to grow, we want good for them. So in that way, if we look upon these things, we will have a very fresh perspective, and it will make life better for them as well. And oftentimes what happens is people do not treat them with respect, and this, she has said, is quite opposite to the duty that we must perform, because this makes the uplifting even more difficult. For example, many a times people are very rude to vegetable vendors and the other people as such. So this is essentially hindering in their process, and we should not do that. Then she says, many people say that, okay, let him respect himself and we will respect him. For this, she essentially says, would you do that with your younger brother as well? No, right? So treat with them just like you would do with your younger siblings. Think of him like your younger siblings, like your brother. So you would want them to grow. You do what is good for them, and you teach them in whichever way you can, because we essentially share the common body, flesh, and blood, and essentially there's also that same divinity within them. And just saying a kind word goes a long way, and it essentially costs nothing. So we can all do that step by step. Now, the other duties which she talks about are things such as child marriage and others, but we have to understand these lectures were given back in 1900s. So the social situations were different back then. But child marriage and these other things are still prevalent and still there in some rural parts of our country, which should be removed. So wherever we see such things happening, which we see are not good for the humanity in general, we should try to correct them if we can. The next thing she talks about is criminals. So often what happens is when a criminal has served his time and they come out of the jail, they're many a times and almost every time still treated as criminals in the society. They're still looked down upon. They're still looked as people who can still harm you. So here she says we should not judge them for the past actions, but we should see how we can help them in the future, so their next actions could help them bring about a better reaction. Simply, we can help them be a better person so they can do good karma. So when we look these things in the light of theosophy, the whole perspective changes, because now we're not looking at a criminal per se, but we are looking at our brother who is maybe a little bit behind in evolution, and it is our duty to help him out or her out, whoever it is. These are like younger souls, and we should never have hatred for them, but compassion and love that they will also improve, and we can help them do that. Then she talks about hooligans, which she says are people who have a tremendous amount of energy, just the direction is not right. Again, if we look it from the theosophical perspective, there's so much that we can do. We can help them, we can guide them if we can, because these are essentially these are essentially people who have a lot of energy, but the direction is missing. So our duty in this particular regard could be to help them find a direction. So these are small things which we can do in everyday life, and these are great service and duty which we can perform as the theosophist. Another thing which is mentioned here is if we don't raise a voice against any injustice, that is also against duty that we are performing, because inaction is again a karma. So it depends what the situation is, right? So for example, let's say a bunch of people are fighting. So one way could be you could go in and tell them to not fight. You could essentially stop the fight, but you have to see what the action is appropriate for this particular moment. So discrimination always plays a part in everything. So you see, if it's a big fight and it will spiral out of control if you get involved, so you try to get a help in other way. You maybe contact the police, you tell someone else who can solve it, the fight. So it's not always about becoming a hero, but it's about doing the right thing in life. So in the end, I would like to conclude with a thought by Krishnamurti. He says, we are the ones who have made the society which we see around us today. We are the ones to blame or to be appreciated for whatever we feel about the society. So first step, I think, towards this is we should observe, we should identify around us what is the situation in society and where we are as a society. If there's something that you find is wrong, that would be the second step to act, and the action or service could be our duty that we perform to mitigate that. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the nice talk with practical life examples and how you explained about that, how we behave with other people, and how the people, those who are economically or socially down to us, how we behave with them. That is very nice. And thank you for your nice presentation. And now I'll welcome I'll invite Sister Pooja Gole for her she's the next speaker. So she is we all have heard her before, still I'll introduce her. She is coming to Theosophy since childhood, but started observing it in the recent times. She is a postgraduate in human development. She is working as an English educator in Vedantu Innovations Private Limited. She teaches phonetics to the kids of 4 to 7 years of age there. And she is a kinesthetic learner, which meaning learning by doing. So she is learning the joy of life with her hobbies of dancing, acting, and recently developed reading. So let's welcome Sister Pooja Gole. Over to you, sister.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you so much for introducing me. So, good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to bow to Dr. Annie Besant for this wonderful teachings she has given to us. And I thank YIT team for allowing me to relay her notions. And thank you, Shikhar sir, for this opportunity and all the team. So here I'm going to continue the third part of today's program. That this is the topic made up of series, and I'm presenting the last part, that is duty of Theosophist to his nation and humanity. So after listening to both the speakers, I'm really very happy to hear her teachings and happy to hear her ideas and basically presented by you too. So it was quite understandable. So thanks a lot to both of you, and I'll continue my own. So after religion and society comes a larger aspect that is our nation and humanity as a whole. Here, she has tremendously wide aspect regarding the context. So Dr. Annie Besant is talking about the holistic development of every part of the nation where a theosophist can take part, the nation where a theosophist, can take part in the upliftment of both. I'm so sorry, I'll just repeat. So Dr. Annie Besant is talking about the holistic development of every part of the nation where a theosophist can take part in the upliftment of the both he and the whole nation, and in turn the whole humanity. For a theosophist, realization of self is very important for every kind of learning, service, understanding, accepting all the aspects around him, for following the divine will and evolution. For this, the first step, according to Annie Besant, is to understand the true sense of religion and service of sacrifice. As told in Bhagavad Gita, the right and true service is sacrifice. And this is the only thing which frees us from the life and death cycle. And liberation is not just moving from one space to another, that is from mortal world to the immortal, but the liberation of the soul, which devotes himself to the divine will and carry the work as God's agent. How amazing it is, right? This is the selfless sacrifice, asking for nothing but service. Then, moving to another duty of Theosophist, that is towards society. Zist is the environment around himself. That is the zist of whole thing, is the environment around himself, giving surface and finding evils in the system and redressing them. So like Aditya told all the points. So okay, so the duty of the Theosophist towards nation and humanity starts with the basic principle that whenever there is a human need which a Theosophist is able to supply, and there lies his duty maintaining the varying details of nation where the Theosophist belongs. So wherever a Theosophist is, he has his duty on. In whichever nation the Theosophist is, in either England, Russia, or India, there is one thing same he can offer, that is his services. Dr. Annie Besant says she does not distinguish here in India in one sense between the colored and the colorless. That is, colored is we Indians and the colorless are all the foreigners. For all the who live within the limit of a nation have their duty imposed upon them to that nation. If we are living in a nation's boundary, we are bound to serve our nation, no matter how you are binding or connected by nation, either by family, tradition, or heredity. By saying this, she expresses her opinion of self-belief and not any dictation to others. She says it's for every one of us to judge and decide how her and our definition of being of Theosophist agrees. So she has given us freedom to think, choose, and act on that. As she mentioned earlier, we have all the liberties, that is liberty of judgment, opinion, speech, and from our speech, action, and thought, we can express our determinations of our intellect and spirit. In every nation, and this is also our Theosophist, one of the main important motto, right? Freedom of expression. So this is what she is trying to tell. In every nation, one great duty lies upon the Theosophist, that is to help improve and to supply the deficiencies in education sector. She tells us that it is an individual duty and not just by expressing good wishes or platform speeches or by written something about it. It's a personal duty which should be accepted by the Theosophist according to his environment. We cannot forget our environment. So in accordance with the environment, we need to work. She mentions education and politics are closely bound. National education is not possible with political freedom. Without political freedom, because if work is to be done in the field of education, then there must be the power in our hands of nation itself. As we know our needs conclusively, that is wholly, we know our needs, so we need power to work on it and how to work on it. I really love this quality and understanding of Annie Besant, where she gives the priority to Indian audience for governing the issue as the environment is India. She says ki, I have been here, so the Indians, because I have been in India, so Indian people will be better like able to understand the Indian needs. That's why she gave priority to the Indian audience and Indian board of members. Even when she was the advocate of this idea, but she chose the greater revolution. She said she was Indian at heart and wanted to do something for the motherland. She said, I recognize that whenever education is concerned, my duty, not being Indian born, is to work with the Indian and under Indian control and not force my own ideas. How understanding she is, right? Wasn't that personality amazing? Adding to this, when they opened Hindu University, there were only 3 colorless people on the board, via Colonel Olcott, Mr. Catley, and myself, that is Annie Besant. And the rest were Indians, because she believed India knows what her sons and daughters want. The object of the Indian nation must be to educate her own sons and daughters, so that they may be the good citizen of the motherland. And the education should be based on people's needs, so that they will get full education and make their voices heard. She tells, in England, political freedom came before popular education. In between the first great Reform Bill of 1832 and later Reform Bill of 1867, many changes took place in regards of the education. No free education, no compulsory, limited education was there. I mean, in between these two main events, there was no proper education, no elementary education was there. And after the Reform Bill 1867, there were advancements about education that took place. Education began to move forward, where free and compulsory education, and no parent was allowed to deprive his child from the benefits of education, which was now the birthright. So after this reform, after that later Reform Bill, it really worked like magic. Now education was the birthright. In India, free and compulsory education was not possible due to the conditions of that time. There was Mr. Gokhale tried everything by bringing various bills that was a complete success. That was not a complete success. And he tried with all his position and popularity by the government. He was in government at that time. But he was helpless when he asked for the education for his people. This is where a Theosophist might try to help. But even she was sure that in those conditions, it was hardly possible, at least until the political system changed. They thought that they will go to encourage municipalities to open schools, free schools, basically. But England was a wealthy country and India was the poorest civilization country at that time. England could afford free education, but India couldn't. And for the parents who were very poor, they couldn't even pay fees or anything. So India is and was an agricultural land, but half of the half of the agricultural population never knows the feeling of full stomach. Isn't that irony? Where hunger is present, how can anything be before it? We can make hungry stomach. We can't make hungry stomachs to take education. So here comes the question of feeding the starved kids. Before education, hunger is important. She was the member of London school board for one of the poorest school, where she observed the same thing due to same thing happened due to malnutrition. Students fainted and were unable to study due to the want of food. Similar events happened in Panchama schools. There they did some inspections and 78% of kids suffered from malnutrition. Here she gave the idea of food before education. As it is rightly said, pehle pet puja, fir dev puja. So it was at that time too. So here she emphasized the duty of Theosophist and a possible solution, that is to talk to municipalities and persuade the local government from refusing to give the free education. So government, we need government's permission for everything. So there one of the motto was to take permissions from government so that government cannot refuse to this idea, and so that municipalities can give free education. Remember, whenever we have the opportunity, we are bound to press the duty of free education for children whenever we can reach them. The next thing we can do is to try to form a system for education in accordance with the government. Yes, this will be difficult, but here a theosophist can be different. And in the later process, many people can join who wish to join by volunteering or by donating from their purses. Anybody can join by any means. But this overall task is not a simple task. Many schools or submerged classes. I really love the explanation of the submerged part. Really good one, Aditya. But this overall task is not simple. Many schools or submerged classes were in the lack of funds. Even in Madras, the Panchama schools were always in financial difficulties and only received help from the Theosophist outside. Here, Dr. Annie Besant pleads to us in regards of education, saying we need to pay attention where our girls and boys are attending the schools. There should be a free school for helpless and the ignorant classes of the population. Just near there should be a school where helpless people or the people who are submerged can attend. Here, the government and people are not synonymous, but individuals. Like I told you, the government was not so helpful. So here, government and people cannot be synonymous, but individuals, and so that they could work. Here in Indian education, here in India, education should be religious, but she said it should not be. Just a second. There should be not proselytation. That means there should not be a process where people's religion is being forcibly changed by violence or bribery. So there should be religion, but not accepting the religion forcibly. Like you should follow your own religion. There what she meant. But of course, also there should not be a teaching without religion, without religious aspects, or teaching in a different form that is not their own. She believed that the children should follow their parents' religion, and a theosophist must take care that every religion is treated equally. So all the religions will teach their own children to their own religion to their own children. Basically, a Christian shall teach Christianity to a Christian child. The Hindu shall teach Hinduism to Hindu child, and the Muslim shall teach the Muhammadism to a Muhammadan child. Every child should be brought up in the faith of his father and not in an alien religion. This is vital theosophical principle. In our theosophical schools, every child is taught his own faith. They join in common worship to that one without a second, before whom we all bow in reverence. That is in respect. They are then taught their own faith by a member of their own religion, so that it shall be taught at its best by the man who loves it. And the child's heart shall have the fragrance of religion, which alone can lead the real culture. and to righteousness of life in the outer affairs of the state. Religion is the foundation of all good. Without that, you train the intellect. That is, you train the combative side of man and you leave the unity untouched. That's why a little bit of religious aspect is necessary so as to touch the fact of unity as a whole. From this para, we get to know that due to the differences in the learning from their respective religions, young men have formed differences within them. But they did not realize that these differences are just on the superficial level. Whatever differences you have are on the superficial level. Even now, some people have similar notions, sadly. We should really start believing Sabka Malik Ek Hai. We should really start believing now. And this is one of the this that all the religions try to tell us, right? At the end, with all the teachings, with all the wonderful teachings, all the religions tell us the main part, the main motto is Sabka Malik Ek Hai, right? So we should actually start believing it. There is the principle of national built on the principle of the family. That means when all the relationships within the family, like mother, father, brother, sister, husband, and wife, are virtuous, all the relationships are virtuous, then the young boys and girls will learn the unity and in turn the national unity. And also the love of country must be taught in every one of our schools. As it is rightly said by Annie Besant, the mother and the motherland are the dearest things on earth. In England, they say boys should learn patriotism. In England, they say boys should learn patriotism, but there that comes naturally, as it is taught in the schools to learn and respect their heroes. But in India, they are not taught to respect our heroes, but the foreign countries, but the heroes of the foreign countries. They didn't know about the great heroes like Shivaji, Chanakya, and Akbar, and about their life. They know nothing. They knew nothing about their life. Nothing about the old India, about great systems of laws, barbarism, irrigation, nothing. How can you have the patriotism when the boys and girls know nothing about India? This is where a theosophist can fill the gap and make them aware about the great India and her grandeur, magnificence. The next, Dr. Annie Besant points out about training our intellect for service. Her vision behind this idea was to collect the thoughtful educationists of India and let them plan out the whole education system and education as they want, instead of want what they need. At that time, English was and is still a foreign language. English was to be learned as a second language. It should be used conversationally for communication and not for something like Chaucer. He's a poet. Chaucer, he's also called as father of literature. Chaucer, which Indians won't be able to use after learning, right? Teaching in vernacular, that is in their own language, where they could understand the facts. So the medium of instruction should be, I'll repeat that. Teaching in vernacular, that is in their own language, where they could understand the facts. So the medium of instruction should be understood by them so that it will be helpful. If you are understanding Marathi or Hindi, it will be great so that so as to explain, if I explain you in your own language, right? After this, when the brains of the boys and girls are ready, then introduce the specialization would be sensible for the optimization of the knowledge. See, she says, we must learn about art, science, commerce, about industry. Basically, she meant taking up the professions which will benefit our whole nation. So AB Pound points out, but there is one other education you must remember, that is our body. Along with being educated, clever, religious, but all these depends on a strong physical body. If it fails, then all the intelligence goes out the need of the physical habitation. All the intelligence you have really work for will go down the drain if you don't have the physical strength of accepting it. So early training of the body is most important part of education. Excuse me. You can study later, but you cannot build a healthy physical body. Now, Annie Besant came to the last part of the subject, the Theosophist's duty to nation in its political life. The Hindu rishis took part in the politics. Went around the country visiting kings, asking whether the artisans had material, whether the agriculturists had seeds, whether they looked after the widows and orphans of those who had died in the fields of battle. So basically, the rishis used to take care, जिसे हम दौरा बोलते हैं. So they used to take care of the local things. Wasn't that the politics? It depends on how you use the word. True politics is the business of every citizen in the nation, whatever his religion may be. Theosophy and politics together has to build up a state of which brotherhood shall be the foundation, in which the rule should be accepted that every child born into a civilized nation has the right to be surrounded by the faculties which brought him into the world. There won't be a true civilization if this is not it. Here, Annie Besant quotes an example about how Indians should feel awakened. She said, if all the posts in educational sector are taken by the people of foreign and have greater salaries, but on the other hand, we Indians had to go to the other country to learn and take permissions, and after coming back, you are getting less salary and less benefits in your country. Won't you feel intolerable and inconceivable? Of course, it should feel. Even if you are not feeling that, you are not awakened enough yet. She believes an Indian in India must have everything that an Englishman has in England. That he must have the pride of race, pride of country, love of country, patriotism, and must not be labeled sedition. That is the one who teaches to how to oppose. Desire for liberty must not be branded as rebellion. This is the duty of every man to change this condition, not just the people of that era, but even now. Here, Theosophist is to help in liberation of India, not a theosophical society. This duty is not imposed upon them by the society, but by the principles of Theosophy. Let us draw our bonds together. Let us approach each other and not repel each other. For only thus will the will of God be done and brotherhood of humanity be released in our world. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the audience to hear me patiently. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. And your talk was so full of energy. Your voice was so energetic that I was also gets charged. And every time when I listen to you, you surprise me with a nice talk and nice presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you are all the speakers, Sister Shreeyashi and Brother Aditya. And you all are so good. Previously, I heard before Pooja, I heard, but I have heard you first time, and you were too good. Thank you so much. And now we will go to the discussion part. Then anybody wants anything to ask or anything to say, then
may I come in and
yes, brother.
Yeah, I'm audible, right? So
Yeah,
sorry,
you are
I'm
audible, but there are some background noises are there. Maybe you are
I'm so
traveling.
sorry, I'm driving, but
Yeah.
it was so nice to listen to these three young people while driving.
Yeah.
It was really, really wonderful. And I'm so happy with all the young members of Prayas Theosophical Lodge. You guys are, studying so deep, improving your lectures, abilities, and your understanding Theosophy is really awesome. And thank you so much for this wonderful session. It was a nice drive listening to you guys. So I didn't want to miss your session. So even I'm driving, I'm trying to listen to you. In the end, there was a wonderful discussion by Miss Pooja Gole, Sister Pooja Gole, regarding the duties of Theosophists towards education. And she explained very well about what was Dr. Besant's idea of what should be the duty of Theosophist. However, Dr. Besant gave examples or explanation with regard to the problems that exist on that day, on those days before independence, when we were still struggling for our independence. Our education system was not in a proper place, and we had to depend on the laws that reforms that came through the laws from the British Parliament. So Dr. Besant spoke in detail about all those problems, right? Now, this is not a question, but I just want to start a brainstorming for all three of you can answer. If you take the same template of how Dr. Besant fought for the education policy for India and how she was involved in the education movement in India with regard to the problem that existed at that time. If you take that example, now what are your ideas about what should be the duties of today's Theosophists to the problems of today's education system? Now the education is very well placed. Education policy is placed. We have our universities. But what is today's education system? It's all about NEET ranks 1, 2, 3, and 4 ranks in this college. You come and join this college. It's all about how to join IITs and coaching classes. You know, you are young members. You just came out of this situation. I think many of you are still facing the situation. They're looting people. They're looting parents in the name of these many ranks we got this year for NEET and for IIT entrance exams and all these things, right? So education system has come down to boil down to that level of how many ranks to that college, and so that I want a seat in that college and how much money I should pay. So taking this today's problem in the education system, what we have, what should be the duty of a Theosophist? Because you experienced this problem very recently. I want to listen from you. So all three of you can answer in 1 or 2 sentences. Thank you.
Can I? Actually,
Yes, go
today,
ahead.
yes. Actually, in today's times, people just focused on the ranks, right? Like you said, but they have forgotten the idea of understanding the concept. And if you understand it well, you focus on it. Today, people are just focusing on ranks. No, like you, exactly the way you said. Okay, you need to work. You need to go in this college, that college, XYZ. But then they are forgetting to promote this idea that whatever you learn right now should be helpful to you in the next part of your life. Next part in the sense, the continuing journey, basically. So that the education is not just for your marks or not just for your position in any office or any college, but for your own upliftment and development. So education is provided to you, available to you for your own improvement, for your own understanding also. Along with the, in today's education, we cannot just sit on understanding and everything, because world is growing fast. So along with those other facts, we also need to like work on this fact that it is for you too, not just for your ranks or your position or your earning or living, for your understanding too. So this is what parents need to understand of all the kids, from the primary to the college students or everything. We just need to induce this idea that along with the marks, you focus on the child's mental health, emotional health as well, for the education part. So because even I teach in the teach the smaller kids, even the smaller kids parents tell us that no, he is not learning, I'm like, let them. It's I because I've learned it, so I tell them it's his age. Let him go with his pace, and let's not hurry his pace. So this is where I focus, and this is what I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, just a second. My dogs are barking. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, sister. And brother Aditya, you want to say anything?
Yeah, so about the whole education thing, I think this is a multifaceted problem. So first thing is we need to realize what the person who's going for education is looking for. And I'm speaking from the perspective of, let's say, someone who's getting into college. So first thing is, if that person is just looking for money, maybe I need to get a decent job, I need to get education, get a job. So for that, I think our education system is doing just fine. But if you're looking for learning, then I think as a theosophist or as a student, it is your responsibility to, just tell the college authorities that, this is what we're looking for and we don't have these facilities here. So you have to convey it to them. And a good example is, like, in my college itself, we had just a robotic arm in our college, but we were more interested in mobile robotics. So we used to go again and again to the committee. We used to tell them, see, we need to get into these competitions and we won't be able to do it without your help. So I think the first step is that the student needs to realize what they are looking for. If they are focused on that, they can convey it to authorities, they can find help. But first step is for them to realize what they're looking for. But this is for the ones who are getting into college and all. For kids, I think it should be more focused on mental learning. It's not about what they're learning, it's about how they're learning, I think.
Brother Pradeep, it is a wonderful question that you've asked. I'd like to say that in the scenario that existed before the independence, it was very different. Our condition was very different. We were not educated. Most of the people were not even literate. Forget education. Education is a very wide perspective. Education is not only studying and getting a job. No. Education means everything. It means your personality. It has to be educated. I'd like to say that it is not just the schools, not the colleges. No, it is the parents. Your parents are your first teachers. Your family is your first teacher. That is from where we start to learn things. How should we behave? What should we say? How should we act? That is the first part of education, our behavior. So as Sister Pooja and Brother Aditya has already enunciated, I'd like to reiterate it again, that of course, mental health and with it other aspects of life and how people are, getting their jobs, how they're running towards quantity and not quality. That is, of course, a problem. But I'd say that in today's scenario, as theosophists, what we can do for education is that we can spread this word that within ourselves, there's this hunger. It is within each of us. This hunger is not for education. It is to achieve that immaterial aspect of life. So if we propagate this, if we inculcate this, if we spread the word that yes, there is one part of you which is not being fulfilled by education that we are provided in schools and colleges, that is the duty of a theosophist. And all of us must work towards it. This is our goal. And it cannot be achieved through dharma. It has to be achieved through adhyatma. There is a minor difference between dharma and adhyatma. And I think all of you are already well aware of it. I don't have to talk about it anymore. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
May
sister.
I observe for 1 or 2 minutes, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I am Dr. Hemant Sharma from Jodhpur, Rajasthan, a retired professor of psychology from Janan Vyas University. I have 2 observations, or I can say 2 questions for my curiosity. One to Sister Shreeyashi and one to Sister Pooja. All the 3 speakers have performed very nicely in their content as well as in expression. So, Sister Shreeyashi, you termed 2 or 3 times regarding para and apara vidya, absolute and relativism. As we are concerned in Gita, both the concepts have been described at large, absolute truth and social reality. As in Einstein's theory of relativity, we know truth is there, universal truth, but our knowledge, our experience, as you termed mental health or our emotions, motivations, all the other aspects of life regarding our existence, they are relative with social as well as cultural relativism. And second question, second observation to Sister Pooja, at the time of Annie Besant, the situations were entirely different in pre-independent India, but nowadays we are living in the independent India. So this nationalism, the education of nationalism and patriotism before 1947, or we can say before 1930, entirely different conditions was there. But nowadays, we are more concerned in this globalization with universal truth, universal brotherhood, or we can say world at peace. So this education regarding nationalism and patriotism one side, and the universal aspect, universal brotherhood, and entire world at peace. So I think there will be slightly minor difference between these two aspects. I'll be very much admired by your presentation if you both of like. Even Brother Aditya may reply. Thank you, sir. Okay.
So that is a great
Thank you, sir.
observation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. And anybody wants to say anything? Sindhi, sir, if you want to add something, or if you want.
Yes, Professor Sharma has given us
Yes.
a good impetus
Okay,
to
sir.
think over now. Really, all of the three of you have contributed very nicely, studied nicely, and brought very good thoughts and expressed it nicely. I must congratulate you all the three. And also, I congratulate Suvan Leela also. She has also explained, conducted very nicely. What I want to say, we are saying about the duties of a Theosophist. Why we have become a Theosophical member? It is not that I wish to become the Theosophical member, but it is my soul which has grown to that level and brought to this Theosophical society. And this Theosophical society is having such a noble object. The very first object is to form the universal nucleus of the universal brotherhood without any distinctions. So in our brain, lot of distinctions are there. You can think of these different distinctions, how many are there locked up in our brain. So without this distinction, how can we feel oneness? That is important education we must give to ourselves. That is what we say, in other words, we have come here. Our duty as a Theosophical member is to humanize myself. That humanization, that spiritualization of my materiality is the first duty. And that I must take it up. And when I take it up, then I will be the example. And that is followed by the others. You need not teach anybody anything. That is what Krishnamurti also said. You must learn to think first. That means you must educate yourself to think first. Are you thinking or reacting? So we must learn to think first. And this thinking must not be local, but it must be a global thinking. We must be more global concerned. That is how we must educate ourselves to think socially, globally, and more, as you have explained very nicely, helpful for the upliftment of the humanity. That is first duty. We must learn to think globally, and we learn to be more concerned about the global, not about the nation, one nation or everything. Second concern is about, you spoke about it, especially human concern. The first concern in thinking globally, second is human concern. We must always think of upliftment of humanity. That is what HPB said. a constant eye for the human progression and perfection. So our thinking must be directed towards that human concern. And the very third important you mentioned, religiosity, religion. As Pooja said, religion must be there. So this religion is to relate, harmonious relationship. How we can bring harmony at our home, at our workplace, in our nation, and like this globally. This is how three concern. In this way, we must educate ourselves. So educating ourselves, self-culture is meant for that. Self-regenerating is meant for that. So if we regenerate ourselves, if we educate ourselves in this sense, then we begin to humanize ourselves. And from individual change, we can bring change in the society. Society is not different from the individual. That is what Krishnamurti spoke many, many times. So we can think of educating ourselves. Now we are raised to that level. In this fifth root race, your brains are very sharp. You are going deeper and deeper. But what Krishnamurti says, going deeper and deeper, it is again shallow. What it should be? It should be help us to have a larger vision. Our deeper study must take it to the larger vision and have that conviction in your mind that you are not bodies, you are soul. And when you understand this, then your direction of thinking, feeling, acting, whole will be towards that. And this is how we get humanized. And this is what it is needed now for this new generation. We need not go into the details of all this. How we can direct our education towards this thinking is very important, because in this fifth root race, our mental body is developing. Emotional body is already developed. And as our mental body is developing, we don't have control our own thoughts. And thoughts having the force, they are changing our moods of the mind. So even if we have control over our emotions, but the thought power changing our moods of the mind, and we are carried by that. That is how we must focus our attention on thinking. That kind of education must be given. And Annie Besant, etc., they have written a very nice book, Thought Power and Culture, all this we read. Because of this, where our focus should be. That is what I think. Our discussion has gone very nicely. And this is what I want to just add in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Just because we are running out of time, so I think we should close the session.
Before closing, I
Can I make a
must
small announcement?
congratulate you. It's a very good session. I'm telling you, very hopeful for the future. It's a good asset for the future that our youngsters are so much interested and so much understanding the right things. I'm very much congratulating them.
Smita, can I make a small
Myself,
announcement?
Kamal Manot.
Yes,
Myself,
thank you.
Kamal Manot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Komalji. Okay.
Smita ji, can I make a
Yes,
small
yes,
announcement?
yes, yes.
Okay, because most of you were not present last week's session, so I would like to make a small announcement that you all know there will be a youth convention in Adyar this time. So let me know from Prayas Theosophical Lodge, whoever is traveling to Adyar to attend this convention, because we are arranging for people to take up some sessions. There are still 4 more slots, and if I really want people like you, Pooja, Shreyashi, and Smita Pragya ji, Kritika ji, Aditya Mathur. Oh, Aditya's sister is taking up one session, Prashi Mathur. I want really all of you to be able to come to Adyar and take up some sessions, but I don't know about your traveling plans. So if anyone is coming to Adyar for youth convention, please let me know. We are distributing sessions for different people. So you can message me or you can put in the group also. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, okay.
So we will,
Thank you,
I think we should close the session with a closing prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya sarve bhavantu sukhina sarve santu niramaya sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukhabhag bhave. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you, Shinde sir. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, and thank you, everyone. Thanks for the participation, and thank you for the speakers for participating in this session and
Thank you
sharing
to
their
you
thoughts.
too.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
sister.
you. Now the session is closed. We will meet next Sunday.
Thank you.